I'm very happy to have with us a young expert who has many years of on-the-ground experience with the issues that he's interested in. Hello, everyone. Right now we have with us Nitin Kumar. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Nitin.
Hello, sir. Thank you, Dr. Mathur, for giving me this platform today. And calling me as a young expert makes me now more, interested to talk about, what I have done and what has been my journey. So I have a couple of slides which I would like to maybe go through as we talk. And yeah, at any time you feel that there's some question or query or observation, please feel free to, jump in so that we can make it more conversational.
Sure. Let's go.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So just let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yeah, we can see it. Let's go.
Okay, great. So I would like to basically call this today talk and our conversation as my tryst with policy, not with destiny, I'll say, but at least with policy. And I have basically summarized my slides in these two major sections. One is me and policy, the 7 chapters till now in my journey, and 5 takeaways from life and policy.
Are they the same as the 7 Feras?
Oh, no. That's a good idea maybe for future.
Your Feras with policy, 7 Feras.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, in fact, next time if I make such a slide, I'll say 7 Feras of life in policy. But yeah, no,
because
thank you
said
for
tryst. Now a tryst with Feras sounds quite legitimate, right?
Legitimate, yeah. I know. I think Jawaharlal Nehru also would have thought the same when he gave that speech. But no, thank you for that. So right, yeah, my 7 chapters and 5 takeaways is what I'm going to basically today discuss with you.
Okay, let's go.
And this is a slide which is a summary. I know that people might just spend maybe a couple of minutes. So at least from this slide, they would be able to get summary of my journey, where I come from. So I say I'm a person from a small town, first generation passport holder, and also an international student who graduated a few months ago from Harvard. I come from Purnea, which is a small town of Bihar in eastern India. And the second thing which I feel in my journey has thankfully given me an opportunity is to step out of comfort zone. And that's why my career path, if you see, has been not very linear, I'd say. I started by being, an IIT engineer kind of thing. Then I moved to policy and development. And then now I feel I'm more into economics and strategy. And all that has happened because I feel at times I have taken that stepping out of my comfort zone and exploring something new with a leap of faith. And at the same time, all this has been made possible just because of the support which I've got, be it my sponsors or mentors, as they call it, or family or colleagues, without whom I feel it was impossible to navigate such a, I say, not so linear path. So gratitude is something which I always keep very close to my heart and in my career as well. Third has been knowledge accumulation and learning with curiosity. I feel that's an area which is so important. My policy journey, as we'll see, started from working at the grassroots and understanding how systems work, how communities function. So I feel that's an area where curiosity really matters, to learn new things every day from anyone and everyone, because sometimes we just get bothered by whom we should talk to for what kind of information. Sometimes we can get such information from both experienced and naive people. So that's why I mentioned this to be an important part of my journey. Fourth has been just some recent academic and professional life events. I mentioned about my graduation from Harvard Kennedy School last summer, and now where I'm working at a social impact startup, not-for-profit called SHRI. And lastly, when it comes to the last chapter, which we'll also discuss, is the future ahead. Under my future ahead, I feel that I am optimistic of working at the intersection of health and environment, doing some economics and strategy stuff, which I'm doing currently as well. And also, this is an area which has come in my mind based on my journey, that I'm trying to connect these two worlds: the world where I come from, where I grew up, where I worked for 7-8 years before I came to US, and the world which is where I am now. For example, I'm in Providence, which is on the East Coast in US. So I'm trying to connect these two worlds based on my work and experiences and exposure in the past. So yeah, this was, I'll say, 80,000 feet high summary of my journey. And now I'll move to the 7 Feras. First Fera of me started, I'll say, in my college. So basically, as I was mentioning, my not so linear path, I went to a place called IIT ISM Dhanbad. I got mining engineering there based on my career, based on my counseling as such. And in that college, there was this opportunity of volunteering in this NGO called Fast Forward India, FFI. And they had 4 chapters, 4 projects. Out of one of them was Bloodline, which basically worked on tackling the problem of blood shortage in the blood banks of the government maintained blood banks. So it was a small project, huge potential, big problem, because there were patients of thalassemia, pregnant, labor, accident victims, those kinds of different situations where blood was really required, and there was blood shortage in the Dhanbad area, which I'm talking about. So I got a good chance to basically work with the district administration. There's a body called JSAC, Jharkhand State AIDS Control Society, a body of NACO, which works on such issues. So I'll say this was my first chapter in the world of policy and development, which started with this volunteering work. Then I moved on to become the FFI coordinator, where I handled 3 other projects, which were Disha, Jagriti, and Escape, which basically works on career counseling in government schools, computer literacy, and spoken English programs for children living in slums around the college campus. So this was, I'll say, one of the leadership opportunities which I got very early as such in my this chapter of life. And that is something which has really made me still grounded and connected with those people who are still working. They have this annual fest called Umeed, which happened some time back. And that always gives me this, an experience in hindsight, that those volunteering and leadership experience of FFI in ISM Dhanbad has shaped perhaps my interest and career in policy and development sector. So this is what I feel from my first chapter of my policy career. Yeah.
Okay.
In the second chapter, when I come, it's from 2014 to 17. After I graduated, I worked as a deputy manager in a mining company called ACC. 10 months of me working in there, I started feeling that this is not the place where I'll be perhaps very happy all throughout my life. And perhaps there is something else which I should explore. And fortunately, in that, like late 2013, December, there was this fellowship which had come up, which was called Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellowship. It was the Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India initiative. I'll say it was more of an experiment, very unique experiment, which was developed by few, I'll say, smart technocrats at that time, like Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Jairam Ramesh, and other people as such. And it was a unique experiment because before this, there was no such experiment where young professionals were sent to districts, and that also districts which have been Naxal affected districts in the red corridor of the country, to basically act as a change agent and a bridge between the community and the government. So it gave me great chance to again understand how policies work on the ground, how, for example, Indira Awas, which is now Prime Minister Awas Yojana, or Manrega, or housing other schemes, or nutrition ICDS, or be it any PDS program, midday meal, how all these programs basically get executed both at the programmatic level and also at the community level. And I basically chose my state of Bihar because I thought it's a good time to now maybe give back something to my state and also learn in the same process. So there's a district called Sitamarhi in the northern part of Bihar. It's also called to be the birthplace of goddess Sita. And I basically spent 3 years of my life then working in this place. So it's a remote district with a population of around 3 million, a rural population to be 95%, so very less urban populated district, has huge agricultural potential and also tourism being the birthplace of goddess Sita, but had issues being it the Naxal affected, it borders Nepal, so that was also a problem, the porous border. But again, this experience and this chapter of mine really gave me a long-term fulfilling experiences of working with the government and also with the community and understanding how things work. At the same time, because PMRDF was also associated with TIS Mumbai, one also got to be a part of a master's program, and I got a master's in development program at the same time. Okay. And then again, as I have done the same in all these slides and all these chapters, I've also now tried to look back and say what I feel now in hindsight. I feel very blessed to take this leap of faith because I had my engineering career which I could have followed. There was opportunity when I was working in the ACC organization, or there's a sale PSU which I had gotten offer letter of. And typically my parents also felt that it's good to be in a government PSU, public sector undertaking or organization, then going into this unique experiment. But I feel that thanks to them and their I think trust, that this leap of faith and this experimental program has really made me feel the importance of stepping out of comfort zone, which I also mentioned in my first
Yeah.
slide.
Okay.
So this was largely about my
So
second
what was
chapter.
your comfort zone?
Yeah.
Can I ask, what was your comfort zone?
I think my comfort zone would have been to continue as a deputy manager and then become a DGM, GM in 15 years. I was one of those, so-called IITians in that organization. So I feel
But you were
my
very
journey might have.
uncomfortable there.
That's true. So it was maybe uncomfortable for me, but I'll say comfortable for the society overall,
Yeah,
how they
okay.
perceive
That's the
career paths.
clarification I want.
Yeah.
The comfort
Yeah.
zone wasn't uncomfortable with you.
Yeah. And that's why I made this leap of faith, So
Okay,
thank you for
fine. All
asking
right, let's
that.
continue.
Yeah, thank you. So in the third chapter, now moving forward up to 2017, when I moved from Sitamarhi, I basically went to Delhi, and this is so-called very famous exam, UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, it's Indian Civil Service exams. And I wanted to attempt this exam for various reasons. I have mentioned a couple of reasons here, that my interest perhaps had developed during my work in FFI, which I did almost 8-9 years ago. And this shows how incremental life and career decisions also get shaped. And it also really strengthened during my work with the bureaucrats and the district magistrates in PMRDF program in Sitamarhi. And I could feel that if your intentions are as such, like good, the scope of making an impact and the scale of making that impact is huge. You can do anything whenever you want to. You can today, for example, focus on nutrition, tomorrow on education, and then in one day you can focus on these different projects, which is sometimes hard to get in other careers. Apart from other benefits of being a civil servant, which we all know, reputation, money, etc. I feel these two really factors had strengthened my interest to be a part of the government machinery. So I gave, so I'll say I read a lot of things, understood the world much better, and today I can say I have a decent worldview of economy, ethics, psychology, polity, which again shaped my decisions and career in the way in the years ahead. And I gave 3 mains. So there's a 3-step examination process. There's a prelims, there's a mains, and there's an interview. So almost 1 million students appear for prelims, almost 10,000 give mains, and almost 2,000 people give interview, and 600 people get selected. So basically, I gave 3 attempts, 3 mains, 1 interview, missed by a margin of 9 to 13 marks in all these 3 attempts. And I term this now, based on my learning at Kennedy School, it's a successful failure. So sometimes people start thinking, oh, this was a failure. You didn't become a civil servant, so it's a failure. But this of late, I have realized how it's a successful failure, and also it's connected to the concept of counterfactual, which is so important in the world of economics. That today, when I'm talking to you, Dr. Mathur, perhaps might not have happened if I would have joined the civil services, or for example, now when I'm being called a young expert, I might have been called something else, maybe a civil servant or district magistrate.
Definitely. Yeah.
And with the lessons, the lessons which I have got, which I've just mentioned here, again, in hindsight, if I'm thinking and if I'm introspecting today, I feel if I had not joined FFI and took that leap of faith to join PMRDF, my journey might have been then very different, perhaps. So again, that same concept, the incremental approach to career and the learnings and the lessons which shape your future. Again, you can speak much more than me on that aspect because of volumes of experience in your life. But I feel that again helped me to even shape my preparation in the GA, the general studies which we write, especially ethics and psychology. So psychology was my optional for this exam. And even till date, so I love this podcast, and that's why I have mentioned it here. It's called Hidden Brain. It's lovely podcast to understand about psychology, life, how things work, etc. So this was my third chapter, which concluded, I'll say, in 2019, end of 2019, when I had decided that now is the time to move ahead. Even before the result of my third attempt had come up, had basically applied all this GRE, TOEFL, etc., to basically do something else where I can feel that I'm contributing, if not becoming a civil servant. And I felt that there is some need for an academic rigor in my development and policy education. And that's why my fourth chapter and fifth chapter are basically those two things which I did before joining the Harvard Kennedy School, which is my fifth chapter. The fourth chapter was working in EY, which is Ernst & Young, a consulting firm, Big Four consulting firm. And within that, my vertical was government and public sector, GPS, which again, if you see, is aligned with my experiences in the past, especially the Prime Minister's Fellowship. I was leading a team of 6 people. I was posted at this client location, which is in Dhanbad. Again, if you see, I'm coming back to Dhanbad where I studied.
Right.
Maybe life's unique strategy. And basically, the project in the EY work was there to develop projects for the development needs of the mining affected people. And again, Dhanbad is a district with 3.2 million people. Almost 90% of the people are affected by mining. So their development needs had to be basically tackled through this new program which had come up, which is called District Mineral Foundation, DMF. So under the DMF, the mining companies basically pay an amount of money, which is then used for the development purposes of the district, which is different from CSR, just to clarify.
Yeah.
And for Dhanbad, basically, it's a huge amount of money. It's around, I'll say, $500 million per year that has to be spent on all these developmental projects. So EY was basically asked that you can, use your consulting, frameworks and expertise to basically help us develop all these projects, monitoring and evaluation, etc. What was interesting, which all of us faced, so I joined there in February 2020, and in March 2020, everyone has the same, I'll say, experience. COVID pandemic hit the whole world. So it was, again, a very good chance for me to, I'll not say step out of comfort zone, but step out of the TOR, the terms of the reference, which was the government's and EY as such contract, which was very different. But then the government asked us, how can you basically help us in COVID mitigation? And so I didn't have any remote job at that point when everyone's life had become remote and people staying home. I and my team very proudly can say this, that we were every day going to the ground to save lives of people, either through handling migrant labor crisis, which had become a big problem in April, May 2020 in India. Quarantine and isolation centers had to be built. Mental health and counseling sessions were very important at that time of the year. Strengthening of the testing facilities, so RT-PCR, TrueNat, RAT, all these different testing were coming up. And, this is the sad reality that, for example, Dhanbad, like a place, even with a population of 3.2 million, didn't have the infrastructure, be it of testing or of hospitals. So, for example, you'll be surprised to know that there were just 10 ICU beds and 5 ventilators in that whole district. And the moment all this was happening, to be honest, we couldn't really calculate what will be happening, the peaks and all, when will the virus mutate. It was too early to, I'll say, understand all that. But we just tried to maybe do what we can in the early months and do some research and consulting work had to be done. So we tried to read about what's happening in Italy, what's happening in US, etc., in China. And we had developed, I would say, almost 200 ICU beds and 500 normal oxygen beds by the end of the year, so which you can say before the second peak of April 2021 hit. And I'll say that's why it's a really proud moment to say that we could perhaps save few lives. And so the whole system in which we operated at that time was, again, I'll say, a very fulfilling experience, even if it was very emotionally draining. Because, for example, one of my works was to calculate the number of COVID deaths every day. Basically, doing that kind of calculation was such a draining work. People calling you that, my patient is dead, my father is dead, and now I need to get a COVID negative test report. So those experiences, even if I can say, were fulfilling because I could save some lives with the whole administration and the machinery, but at the same time, were very emotionally draining. And again, all this was possible, and which is the part of gratitude, because I had a great mentor and boss, my deputy commissioner at that time in Dhanbad, and also my partner in EY, who didn't ask me or didn't stop me, why am I doing all these works which were beyond the TOR of the organization's contract? And again, in hindsight, when I see all this, I say that all this fulfilling experience has shaped the courses which I took, when I joined after this in my fifth chapter, Harvard, and also the work which I'm doing now. So again, this incremental approach, as I have been, I think repeating in every slide. Now comes the fifth chapter, which I think is the most close to the recent and also the most, I'll say, important journey in the last 3 years. So after my work in EY, I basically left my work in 2021 July, and I joined the MPID program, which is a Master in Public Administration in International Development. So it's a program at the Harvard Kennedy School in Cambridge, US. And one of the reasons why I had applied for this program as compared to other public policy or other programs was because in the 7, 8, 9 years of my experiences in India, I had realized that there's a need for academic rigor if I really want to be in this path, in this career for a long time.
Yeah.
And this program has that, I'll say, repute. That is, people also say it's a precursor to PhD in economics and that kind of stuff. So I'll say it really gave me a good chance to understand how economics, econometrics, development economics, and all these macroeconomics play a huge role in understanding the development sector, which I'll say was perhaps not that much stronger in my early academic weight and test, or even my engineering was obviously very different. And thanks to maths, I'll say, I always loved maths in my childhood. And that's why I also got into engineering. I had never known the importance of maths in economics till I basically took all these microeconomics and macroeconomics courses. And that's why I would love to, at least state the importance of maths economics for, people who are young and still maybe navigating their paths. Second, which was an important part under this chapter, was the global community. So before coming to the US, I had never been to any other part of the world except Nepal, which is a neighboring country of India. And so the global community, which I experienced, I'll say for the very first time in true essence, my program was an 87 student cohort. Out of 87 people, they were basically from 40 countries. So that's where I'll say it's a totally global community. In the Kennedy School, there were people from almost 80 to 90 countries. So I had never got this kind of exposure and I'll say ecosystem before. And really that shaped the way I think, the way I function, the way I perhaps even speak now. And then even within all this, all these rigorous courses of economics and econometrics, which I was mentioning, was a major positive in the MPID program. I also got a chance to learn few soft skills, which is in the classes of negotiation, the leadership, art of communication. And I took many health system courses, which I was just mentioning, where aligned to my work at during the COVID pandemic, whatever I could realize that health is one of those sectors where I feel one can really have a very fulfilling or a satisfying work, even if it can be emotionally draining. And again, not saying from a doctor's perspective, but from a health policy perspective. So this kind of hard and soft skills, I got a chance to be experiencing under this. And then within this 2-year program, there's an opportunity of doing a summer internship. So I went to Synergy, which is a organization in Kenya, in Nairobi, which, if you see, again connects to my work in PMRD of Sitamarhi, where Sitamarhi had become the first district of Bihar to become open defecation free after almost a year and a half work which we had done there. I've not got into very details of what we did as PMRDF and all, because that will be a long conversation as such. But I was just trying to show how these experiences basically are incremental and they shape your decisions and career paths. And even that's connected to my present job at SHRI as well. And again, here I can't say in hindsight because it's too now new. But I think just to summarize this fifth chapter, I'll say I've been very fortunate to be part of such a global community and institution, and to be a part of such a rigorous program to better understand the policy and development sector, which I want to continue for my life in the coming years. And now I move to the sixth chapter, which I'll say is the most recent chapter, which is like what is happening today with me. Is after I graduated from Harvard Kennedy School, I joined this organization, which is called SHRI, which stands for Sanitation and Health Rights in India. It's a small, yet I'll say very impactful social startup working in India, in the states of Bihar and Jharkhand, and which is also very interesting. There's a term in economics called divine coincidence, which I would like to use it here because it works in a sector which I have had some experiences, and it also works in the states where I come from and had worked before. So
Yeah.
it was very that way a natural, I'll say, divine coincidence with
Yeah.
me, and that's why also I got more interested to be a part of it because I felt I could stay here in US but do something which is basically in my own country and in my own region within India as well. And within this organization, because it's a, I'll say, small organization, it has given me an opportunity to work in multiple ways. I'm working on strategy, fundraising, operations, government relations, and all those different kinds of grant writing, etc. And this is, by the way, my first ever remote job. So also getting a good chance to experience the majorly positives out of it, and also working then together with my wife, and also at the same time working on my family dynamics, which has been a great experience that way. And also it's my first time experience of working in a not-for-profit organization, so I also wanted to experience this, as I feel one has to have this incremental approach and multiple diverse experiences. And now, for example, I'm working with the SHRI strategic plan. I'm making that, which is basically a scaling up of what we are doing currently to 5 times in the coming 2 to 3 years, because the organization has already proved its proof of concept on how the sanitation problem, especially in these states, needs to be curtailed, needs to be solved through this approach, which is professionalized operation and management systems and monitoring and evaluation in the community and public toilets, which are majorly what the people in slums or in unauthorized or unnotified colonies, be it in the rural or the peri-urban areas, use as such. So, like for example, I just completed the annual report yesterday, and we basically had 2.2 million people who used the present SHRI's facilities in Bihar and Jharkhand in the last year. So that's also a great achievement and also a feeling of happiness that because of my association with this organization and the people who had started it, today now we are able to reach out to so many people and their lives are being impacted somehow with the work which I'm a part of. And now in this sixth chapter, I'm basically doing some new beginnings, which is where I'm living now, Providence, which is a place in Rhode Island, state of US on the East Coast. And now comes the last Fera, seventh chapter, which is future, which is obviously an area which nobody knows where, how, and how things go. But as I was mentioning in my previous few slides as well, I am feeling this is a great chance now, based on my education, experience, and exposure, that I can basically connect these two worlds in my limited capacity, whatever I can. So even in SHRI, that's what I am doing. In one of the projects which I'm looking forward to work with you, Dr. Mathur, is Lift Up. And that's also a very, very closely connected to my heart, even when it's so in early days, because small towns and equitable development is so important, especially because I come from there, I have worked in those areas, so I can understand that perhaps a bit as such. And then my also future goal is also aligned to what I'm doing now, is to perhaps explore more this intersection of economics, health, and environment. In the world of climate change and pandemics and epidemics, which seem to be perhaps now a common norm, there are many researchers who say that after 20 years, there can be a major pandemic, some say even earlier as such, all this virus mutations, etc. So that's an area which I think, based on my previous experiences again of COVID and my courses at Harvard and my now present work, makes me feel that this is an area which I would like to explore in the coming years. And now I'll say my last slide, which is 5 takeaways from life and policy. One is, I'll say, hidden potential. I feel Adam Grant has a book on this, and I think I'll say, I feel based on my journey that anyone can do anything and reach anywhere if guided, motivated, supported at the right time. I'll say my journey speaks about that. Secondly, which I had mentioned earlier, gratitude, humility, and empathy, not only for others, but also for oneself. Like in my EY time, when it was very emotionally draining, I think empathy for myself. And even at the Kennedy School, there were so many challenges and changes for me happening socially and other ways. I feel it is important to have an empathy for oneself. Successful failure, I gave an example of my UPSC experiences and stepping out of comfort zone, which was my PMRDF experiences. I feel are really helpful and important. Continuous learning with curiosity, I think that's what I have been trying to do throughout my career. And I feel it's really important as a professional, as such, to become more better and better as a human being and also as a professional. And last, I feel it's very important to have both a bottom up and a top down process of getting things done. That's also a very important area which I feel for from whatever career and whatever path you want to take. So this was all my slides, now questions and answers, and just my thank you slide.
Okay, well, great. Can we shut off the slides so that we can just talk to each other? Well, you are one of the poster childs of modern India, poster child face, because with no privilege in your background, through luck, hard work, merit, and thinking, you have made it very far, and shown that you can actually deliver on the ground. So it's remarkable journey. And I think increasingly there are people like you. And that's really a great opportunity for India. India hasn't quite figured out what to do with people like you, unfortunately, because they are still pushing you into the uncomfortable comfort zones. There is a uncomfortable comfort zone, whether it is ISM or IIT or UPSC or whatever corporate world, EY. These are all so-called boxes which are well paid and good, but you are still being pushed into one there. There's no place for you. So you are really having to create one for yourself. And that's actually a testament to you, but it's a failure of Indian society that I increasingly find while talking to people like you, that it has no place. There is no centralized, everything is PMRDF, CUET, JRF, this, that, and all, but there's no place for you to be yourself. Right? That's unfortunately the case, and I wish we could have a better system to say, look, there will be some people who will be off the chart. Whether they come from a very low privilege background and made it to the top, or in statistical terms, who are outside plus minus 2 sigma of the normal distribution. So they are off the chart. But we don't have such a system in place. We just don't have. To be yourself. Sorry, that's why you keep saying step out of your comfort zone. But as I pointed it out to you, that was a discomfort zone. And actually, you couldn't find a comfort zone because every zone that was there is EY. Okay, it's good, but then it's not good enough. PMRDF, it's good, it's not good enough. ISM, it's good, but it's not good enough because you are more diverse and more qualified than to be put in those places. So that's my comment, that look, there is a major gap in the society. And I see that not only with you, but, we had a big discussion about why the women's participation rate in the labor force in India is lower than Pakistan and Bangladesh now. And though, of course, if you look at the most recent data, it has gone up a little bit. But this old explanations like, patriarchy, this, that, and all, they don't work because they don't explain changes. They are constants, right? A constant cannot explain a change, right? You know that. So those are constants, and those are constant across Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. So how can they explain differences? They cannot. In the end, my conclusion from that discussion was that basically the economy has moved on, but society hasn't. And there is no place in the economy that accommodates the old social structures. If to work in the new economy, you have to have a new social structure. And then also some women in the US say, look, I could hold a job if there was babysitting. Okay. Because the society hasn't caught up to that. Okay, the economy has changed, but the society is still saying, no, babysitting is done by mothers or neighbors or whatever, grandmother or somebody. So that's just my general observation. Yeah, I'm very happy to hear what you have done, and I hope we can find some things to do together, but that's offline. For the moment,
Yeah.
I would say it's a very great journey, and getting into Harvard is no joke. Everybody knows that. No matter what the program, it's very, very hard to get in there, and certainly you have done it, and now you have found yourself a happy, what should I say, balance between the various forces affecting you. So that's my comment, but I have nothing more to add. Okay, that's
No,
great.
I think, yeah. No, thank you for I think, yeah, those are good words. And one thing which really I'll say, I like what you say about economy and society, how economy might have boomed from what we used to be to a 3 trillion economy today, but the society perhaps really needs to catch up with that. I'll still say I'm an optimist, so I'll say that things have improved. Labor force participation has increased, as you also mentioned. Our recent Nobel Prize in economics, Claudia Goldin's whole research in that regard. So I'll say, being an optimist, that even people like me who are there in the present world, coming from small towns, and have obviously reasons to get stuck in the silos which are basically made by the society. But at the same time, I think we need to find those role models, those mentors in our lives to perhaps come out of that kind of so-called uncomfortable comfort zone and move on to perhaps achieve something which they would be more happy contributing and being part of. So that's what I would like to say as an end to our optimism and the conversations which we had. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, the thing is that every single young person I've talked to has been optimistic. So that now maybe it's a biased sample, obviously. But, I won't call it a representative sample. It's a biased sample. But anyways, great to hear you. Let's end it here. Maybe we'll come back to you at some point to hear about some of the practical things that you are doing rather than just your journey, because it's worth hearing what is being done rather than saying it'll take too long. Okay. Why should it take too long? We have another session for that. Okay. So let's end it here. And I'll be back with another expert or a young person or a young expert soon. Till then, bye everybody. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mathur.